Good afternoon and welcome to the Embedded Executive Podcast. My name is Rich Nass. I am with Embedded Computing Design, and my guest this week is Alex Iuorio, and he is the Senior Vice President for Global Supplier Development at Avnet. How you doing, Alex?
I'm doing very well, Rich. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So I wanted to have you on because you guys just did your annual survey. I was going to say reader survey, but you don't have readers. You have users, customers. So let's start right there with the methodology. Who did you survey? And I want to hear a little bit about them.
So the Avnet's Insight Survey we've used it for a number of years. The last 2 years, it's been focused on AI. And we surveyed 1,200 respondents around the world. The disciplines traverse software, technology, computer equipment, multiple regions, and to be able to launch that survey and then collect the data back on a set of predetermined questions. Exciting to us to see what's going on in AI from my core customers' perspective. I hear a lot about what's going on at the hyperscaler level, but there's a whole mass market and AI implementation need that's out there that we're servicing.
Okay, so just to set this right, you said your customers. Who are your customers? Well, I don't mean specifically, but
any customer, Rich, that buys electronic components, semiconductors, and associated components would be my customer, right? But the core customers, where Avnet spends, the vast majority of our time, where we offer our full value proposition, is really in the middle tier of customers and then into the mass market, right? Essentially our key supplier partners pay us to maintain and canvas and have our finger on the pulse of that marketplace, so that they understand what the mass market is doing. So that's where we spend most of our time. That's where we offer our full services. But of course, at the very top of the triangle, we offer services as well, but they're more supply chain oriented as opposed to full service. And when I say full service, I'm talking about design efforts, resources, solutions for those customers that are trying to design and bring products to market.
Now, you said this is about the second-ish year that you've had a focus on artificial intelligence in this survey. Are you brought to it? And what I mean by that is that's how we do coverage. We don't cover what we think is important. We just cover what the audience tells us is important. So right. Is that why you were guided in that direction?
No, I think that as we've looked at the AI market and really the explosion of the AI market, it seems fairly logical to us how it's progressing, right? Yeah, I made the comment earlier about the hyperscalers. That's where the action is. That's where the dollars are. But at this point, I think we'd have to agree that AI functionality in computers and cell phones, and whether the computer part has been accelerated by AI has accelerated the computer refresh, what have you, those would be examples of customers at the very top tier. We may service them in terms of logistics capabilities specific to the high-tech supply chain, a business that Avnet cut out and developed expertise in 1992. But the next part of AI is this concept of AI at the edge. And that's where we get most excited, because that implies computational capability at the edge. It implies microcontrollers and MCUs, and it implies, neural networks and large action models as opposed to large language models. And we see that developing. We have, in my opinion, the greatest stable of microcontroller manufacturers in the world, all of which that are developing products to be able to accommodate AI at the edge. All of them have a desperate need to be able to show that capability to customers in an efficient way. One of the things that an Avnet will always do is develop solutions that will accelerate our customers' knowledge and their time to market. And let's face it, Rich, we're talking about their time to money. In just this specific regard, we've developed a platform called IoT Connect, partnered with the top 5 microcontroller manufacturers on our line card to optimize those devices for our IoT Connect platform, as well as do so in a secure and encrypted fashion, right? So what this does for our customers in a solution regard is any one of those microcontrollers out of the box, you can't do much. But you take it out of the box, you put it in our sandbox, you're allowed development, you can actually, construct a network all in a secure way. This is how we're trying to enable AI at the edge.
And those 5 vendors are?
In no particular order, Rich.
Of course.
ST Microelectronics, NXP, Microchip, Renesas, and Infineon. Those are the microcontroller manufacturers. Certainly, we're doing development with our key supplier partners who are in the MPU space, probably led there by AMD.
Okay, so let's get into the survey. If you had to pick out one item from the survey that is startling or surprising, what would it be?
I've been asked this question a couple of times, and I don't know that I've got something that's startling or surprising. So here's the way we see it. When you start thinking, about AI, and the survey really bifurcates it or divides it. There's AI in terms of application for process. What are you doing to improve your processes internally, manufacturing or otherwise? And then hold on one second. Sorry about that. Maybe I should have done what I said earlier. So ask me the question again, Rich. I'm sorry to get cut off.
Was there anything that was really startling that emerged from the study that you were surprised by?
Yeah, so not really surprising. When you think about, the two sides of it, right? Am I using AI internally, or am I embedding those capabilities? Probably we should come up with a better word than embedding, including those capabilities, in the product. To see last year, it was 42% of those customers surveyed, and see it jumps up to the 56% range, pretty sizable jump. But then when I start to think in terms of education, in terms of the solutions that are available, in terms of the products that are available to facilitate that journey, it doesn't surprise me. As a matter of fact, it wouldn't surprise me if it bumps up again quite significantly. For years, our partners at Intel talked about the rise of the edge. And I think it made a whole lot of sense, because in those days, 10 years ago, we were talking about the edge as those customers that were connected to the internet. Today, it's every customer who's building a product that wouldn't be connected to to the internet. And I think once you're connected, applying some level of intelligence to those connections makes perfect sense. So we're not surprised by the increased adoption. And based on what I just said, we think that adoption will even go further.
One of the things that I noticed in this study that's, I'll say it's disappointing. I don't know if that's the right word, but while these engineers are designing AI-based products, they're not using AI in their design process. And that shouldn't be. If we're advocating the use of AI, why aren't we adopting it in our own work?
I think to varying degrees. I think it's important to stop here and think about how fast this thing has moved. Okay, it really has, right? So we've been getting a set of questions about, well, these are the 14 things that engineers are telling us they're using AI for today. Which one do you think, Alex, is going to emerge? All of them, right? Assuming that they're satisfactory and return on investment type applications. But I think this is under that category of not surprised. It doesn't surprise me that there's no clear winner and that the engineers are talking about AI in every possible context. But I think that does include the kinds of tools that they're using to help develop, CAD type tools that are now AI assisted. But then I think it also goes all the way back to process automation, as you saw in the survey, in terms of where it's being used today. So I don't draw conclusions from the survey in the sense that, boy, it told me what's going to be big. I think what the survey told us and the angle of incident increases in the various categories shows us the whole thing's going to be big and getting bigger.
Okay. Do you feel like we have the haves and the have-nots, those that are really comfortable working in this domain, and those that are just saying, I'm going to let somebody else do that?
Yeah, we talk a little about that, and I think that some of these great leaders who are involved, have made commentary in that regard, and I think they're absolutely right. I mean, some of that I think is gauged in pace by our reticence to accept the technology, but at the end of the day, we better figure out that we're not going to be replaced by AI, right? But Jensen's right. We're going to be replaced by people who effectively use AI, and I think that's the mantra. What you're really getting at is the psychosis of it, and I'm dealing in the reality of it. Not that you're wrong, you're absolutely right, but we need to be able to get over that because, what did they used to say? The train's leaving. You have to make a decision as to whether or not you're going to board.
Right? Yep, absolutely. So I know how long it takes to do these studies, and I imagine you're probably going to be gearing up for the next study pretty shortly. Put the crystal ball in front of you, and what do you think we're going to hear from people a year from now?
I think if CES is any indication, it's robotics, and more robotics, right? And I'm not talking about factory automation and what are the equivalent of file cabinets moving around. We're talking about humanoids, and I think that as you start to see the reality of some of the devices for the edge, right, microcontrollers with neural processing networks on board. When you start to think of the reality of large action models as opposed to large language models, or vision, language, action as opposed to LLMs, now you start to get into a category where not only can it be done, it is being done, and now the question is, can you move it to scale? So I think robotics is where it's at. Now, because when you think about robotics, it comprehends all the big trends: machine learning, vision. Right. It's all there in my mind in this humanoid form.
You mentioned a whole bunch of MCU guys, and they're all great. There's no question about that. We often have issues on the software side. Is the software keeping up to speed with what these hardware guys are producing?
It has to, but it becomes a partnership effort. So I would say yes, in terms of the necessary software stacks to be able to not only run the device, but to be able to develop with it, I would say yes, they're developing. But then I think they're developing on pace with what the devices require. But I also think that partners, real partners who are developing across technologies, across suppliers and so forth, offering programs like IoT Connect to facilitate adoption and address those issues of time to market and time to money we talked about earlier, that's what you'll see start to develop. Ecosystems for sure.
Yep, absolutely. If people want to get a copy of the study, is this available to the general public?
Absolutely. We have it on our website. Yeah, we have it on our website, but people can feel free to go there so they can download and take a look. And hopefully it'll prompt additional conversation about unique and innovative applications that Avnet's here to serve.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Alex. I appreciate you taking the time.
Sure.
That was Alex Iuorio. He is the Senior Vice President of Global Supplier Development at Avnet, and I am Rich Nass with Open Systems Media.